Hello and welcome to the South Africa deck building video. So I'll show you how I organize my deck. You guys can get some ideas, and if you guys actually have any ideas of how I can improve this deck based upon how I wanted it, how I designed it, let me know, and I'll see. I'll consider it. Maybe toy around, because anything that helps out making this deck better is a-okay in my book. So first off with logistics, standard, fob, cargoes, actually pretty decent cargo. It's not armored like the Oshkosh, but it's still, fast, gets the supply. It does its job. They actually have these super Freylons, which I don't think we need because of how fast everything moves. Well, this could actually work as a forward fob, moving it just behind the front lines, and then since everything's on wheels, it could move back and forth and capture it. So that's something to consider in the future. I decided for CVs to get the Rattel BV, Bradley machine gun, good at suppressing anything that tries to come after it. It's fast, it's got enough armor for a stray shot or two of mortars and artillery. Just what you need. And of course the Commandant and a Puma. I decided for the Puma because I ran out of Oryxes, but also because I want to make sure I bring the CV to an area that's secure, so sacrificing a little bit of speed is better. For the Oryxes, I want the stuff that I actually want to get to the sector before the enemy. Which leads us into the infantry. I've got SAF 90s in Oryxes. I could have brought them in like Caspier cars and such. But since you only get one squad, I was especially trying to hope to use these guys to drop off the helicopters early, secure a zone against other enemy helicopters coming in, have the Appalachian to also stop any vehicles coming forward. Any kind of close vehicles is supposed to be what the SAF 90 is supposed to kill. I could see myself in like a motorized deck getting like a couple SASF squads with like the Stella 2Ms and these. They may not look like much, but they're like the FJB, where if you can spam them a little bit more, due to the fact that they're cheaper, especially with increasing the veterancy of the Caspier K cars. And even though they're only 3 HE and 40% accuracy, they're elite trained. So these Strela 2Ms probably are going to be about just as accurate as my Stingers are at trained with their 50% buff. So the only difference is well, 3 HE. But if you get a couple of those, you can take out any helicopters, 6 points or such. It's just something to that I'll experiment with later on. I also have the Buffalo 85s. Like I said, I love those. These guys were doing quite a good job just basically zoning out an area. The Milans kill any infantry vehicle or light vehicle, which gives a zone control. And they've got 50-man squad that if they try to overwhelm, these guys can actually weather the attacks and keep firing their Milan F1s to go and kill the enemy. I then got the Bocop 90s and the Rattel 60s because I wanted the mortar support, and I actually do love just bringing in more and more mortars to help this out. It's got to be better at quickly switching to them. Bocop 90s and Rattel 20s. I mean, Rattel 20s bread and butter. These things are just amazing at what they can do. Like I said, I wanted to bring in more Rattel 20s with the Strela 3s, a little bit more accuracy. They're more, a little more accuracy, better range against helicopters and such. But they didn't quite work out. But then again, they were stunned, so I might revisit this a little later. But I was thinking 25 points for a little bit less substantial anti-air squad, or just get the for sure saying Stinger Seed with their 5 HE for 5 points more for 5 HE and more accuracy. I think was worth it. Even though I can't get a Rattel 20, I could get the Casper KC car, and I don't know if there's any way that I can pin this stuff here. I would love to have it to compare it to the Rattel 20, but the Rattel 20, 2 front armor, 20% accuracy, autocannon, Casper's KC, 1 front armor, but with 15 accuracy autocannon, but still both of which will do their job. They have the same fire rate and such, so it was good enough, I felt. So this is my front line, lots of Bocop 90s. Some honorable mentions that I tried to get to work. I mean, the Milans are good if you want cheaper Buffalo support. If I was going to do this, I would get them in like the Bufel or the Casper Mark II, something like 10 points to bring them in quickly. Or Casper KC car, just to keep them cheap fire support to kill off any enemy infantry CV. I've been paying attention to lighter ATGMs and found out they're really good at just clearing out all the light stuff. And that leaves you, after all the junk is cleared off the field or the autocannon support is teared off on the field, you can then start dedicating more stuff to the heavy stuff as well. And you don't feel like you have to turn these off, that every missile you fire is a waste. It actually, every missile that you fire, and if it kills an APC, it did its job because you wanted that APC dead. You don't want to waste it on a super heavy if you were like a Milan F3 or something. So another honorable mention, the Inflict. Man, oh man, that range. It's great. 4 HE will kill infantry dead like no tomorrow. Couldn't quite fit it in this deck, mainly because I wanted to have Rattel 20s for sure in this deck alongside having the mortars. And I wanted to have extra stingers because, I mean, SAS F90s, while they're good at stingers, they are really expensive at 60 points to bring them in for manpad squads. So I wanted to also have regular stingers. I might switch these stingers out. I'm still experimenting of if I am short. The Mechanefs, not the greatest. I, again, still looking, trying to figure out what my niche is for everything. But the problem with the Inflicts, the reason why I didn't get them, is just the sheer fact that I wasn't able to get the best value for them whenever I tried to set them up in a location. Oftentimes they became the front line pretty darn close, and that range got evaporated pretty quickly. So I could see this in like a motorized deck where I could put out more infantry to keep the front line further away, but again, it's something I need to experiment on. Valkyrie! This thing did good in that last game with the rockets and the rate of fire, smoke, and such. This is great. Like I said, mortars. Don't need them. I got the Rattel 60s to do that for me. The Rattel 60s are the 2 HE, so these LN 60s are basically what those are, but without the infantry. These are 20 points. These are also 20 points, but with more front armor and such, whereas these guys are 1. I'm going to take a look at that heat. 30% accuracy with 4 AP, Rattel 60. It's the same. So it's the same thing. So it's the same gun. But I'd rather be able to bring infantry in with the Rattel 60s. Rattel 81 is if you decide not to have Rattel 60s of infantry in here. This is what you would have for your mortar support. 3 HE, definitely good. You can also get the Rattel 120, but this thing only has 36 rounds. So it's going to empty pretty quickly, and you can't get that many of them. So you'd have to supply it, and mortars are heavy on supply drain. For continuing on, I have Rhinos. I decided to get a couple of Rhinos because wheeled artillery is really good at firing and moving. I haven't figured out how many rounds these guys fire before they have to move again. I'm thinking 10 or 8. I haven't counted exactly. I haven't used these to their fullest extent. But they're pretty accurate and can move around really quick. So you can fire a few rounds and it quickly moves them before the enemy counter RDs you. Something I'd like to make note of is a Martillery Sextant. The Sextant 4HE, 72 rounds, if you compare it to the mortar, has more range and wider dispersion, and you get a bunch of them with 4 HE power, and they're actually fairly armored with 3 front, 2 sides, so they can kind of take a little bit of counter RD back as well. Why would the Sextant be good is you could bring in 10 of these guys, and where you know where the enemy is, but you don't know exactly where they are, having tight artillery like the Rhino is a little bit of a downside. Say like they're occupying a huge forest, but if it was the Sextant, if you start running shells all over that forest, it doesn't matter where they try to hide, they're going to have a chance of being rained down on and taking heavy damage from the Sextant. So don't underestimate these guys, these artillery. And they can also provide smoke too, so they're somewhat versatile. AA, you have the I'm terrible at pronunciation on the first time. Yestervark, I guess. Cheap. AA, nothing special. The Bosvark. So what exactly is the difference between these two, given the fact that they're the same points, they have the same range? Oh, the Yestervark, this one, has a little more range against infantry. So it's a little more of an infantry support. I actually like that. It's medium size. It can fire on the move. It has more accuracy. And has less rounds per mission, rounds per minute, and less suppression than the Bosvark. So that's the difference. And the Bosvark has to get closer for its ground. If I would get either of these, I would get the Yestervark, but there are other things that do the job better, like the Rattel 20, so I don't see myself getting either of these anytime soon. The Rory Cat ZA-35s in that last game that you saw, excellent radar with their stabilizer, accuracy. They are radar guided, so just be mindful of that, but they do have 3 front armor. I use these guys to take out not only helicopter, but also infantry as well, because they'll just cut stuff down, and they're really fast, like 120 kilometers an hour off-road. Like, dang. There's no way you're getting away from this helicopter. This thing will chase you down and shoot you down. Other stuff, you've got the Rover 107 with napalm. So that's something that exists. You do have cluster, 40-round cluster. I haven't experimented too much with this. Actually, I don't think I've experimented with this at all. So something to consider if you like cluster. For AA, there's an argument to be made between the cactus and the cactus shafts. On the one hand, the cactus shaft is fire and forget for 3,500 against helicopters. That is amazing. On the other, you only get 4 or 5 of those, whereas the cactus, you're able to get 7. And they are basically crotels. And crotels, if I recall, are still pretty darn good against helicopters. Even though they need to be guided, it's not like the helicopter is going to be getting out of line of sight once the cactus is firing its missile. Basically, from when the missile leaves the tube and goes towards the helicopter, I don't think it's going to lose line of sight before the helicopter gets out. That's a like very rare, obscure occasion. So I actually stuck with the cactus so I could just put more of them in my deck. Cactus shafts are definitely pretty good, but for the 15-point price range, for the fire and forget capability, I'm just going to stick with the cactus. The Rory Cat ZA HVM is, of course, a must. That's another reason, because if you look at the cactus and the cactus shaft and the Rory Cat have the same range against helicopters, whereas the cactus is just a little short, but its goal is to just be not radar and take down the helicopters, whereas the Rory Cat ZA HVM is supposed to be against both planes and mainly planes, but also can take out helicopters if they get too close as well. So again, that's just my preference on how I organized my support. Moving on, tanks. Of course, I had to get the Logum. I had to get 4 trained because these are going to be a heavy-duty tank, and I wanted to be able to hold the enemy at bay as long as possible. Oliphant, I actually gotten hardened because, first off, it's a massive price drop from the Logum, and the downside with the Oliphant is that it's not very accurate on the move, with only 35% stabilizer, but I will happily take that reduction in stabilizer for an impressive 10 rounds per minute, 60% accuracy, 17 AP power, and 15 front armor. For 80 points, that's pretty good. And if you notice, there's not much armor difference on the side or top with the Logum, and the Logum only has like 20 extra front armor. So, massive price drop, really good value for money, I feel, this Oliphant. Yeah, definitely picking that. And then, of course, the Rory Cat 105. definitely want to have a 105mm cannon to take out any enemy force. With its fast-moving wheeled speed, 120 kilometers an hour, that we saw with that flanking force is able to keep up. Definitely different in the track stuff that you have over here. There is the Rory Cat 76, but why would you want a 76mm when you can have a 105mm for 10 points? And even the 105 even has more rounds per minute as well. Definitely want to take that. Recon. This is also the reason why I didn't want to take that 76. You have the Rory Cat 76 here. Yeah, for 10 points more, even though you have a little less AP power. You've got the very good optics, the fast speed and such, so wanted to keep that, want to get the Rory Cat 76 for that. And the Pathfinders I have in the Casper's K car with the frag grenade. This thing has helped me clear out so many towns, trying to help out the Bocops. Pathfinders and Bocop 90s with their, and even SASF to a degree, all together in a town together will clear out any ground and air, and any infantry with their grenade launcher that they encounter in any town. That's something I've enjoyed. SASF snipers, I want them in the Oryx so that I can also get some flanker rounds as well to help probe out to see if there are any zones the enemy has not guarded against. And also anti-material rifles are underestimated, especially with an exceptional stealth squad. These things can take out light vehicles as well that are the only thing guarding between you and a good flank on the enemy's side. Trackers, they're interesting. Instead of, they're 5-man squads, but instead of being 5-man squads with an RPG, they're basically anti-infantry 5-man squads. So they can only shoot at other infantry, which is interesting. That's all I have to say. I don't know if they're good, but anyways. Alphas, I wish this thing was slightly faster so it could keep up with my Oryxes. Oryxes are 300 kilometers an hour, or I could just do that over here. This is only 220, which kind of sucks, but with good optics, it has a pretty decent autocannon that is independent of the helicopter, it looks like, I think. It's not moving back and forth, so it might be fixed. But anyways, the purpose of this autocannon is to clear out any Mi-2s or separate helicopters that are off to the side and such, and provide kind of support and cheap optics from the air. So that's why I picked that. Vehicles, there's not a lot. I had those extra points I could throw away. So what I did was I chose the Ferric Mark II 106. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are raising your eyebrows right now. Why would you take a recoilless rifle? Well, the other choices weren't exactly better. You have the NTAC. This thing's awful. It doesn't have the range. It fires 2 missiles, but with 35% accuracy, they're not going to hit. If they do hit, yeah, they're going to take out any APC. But I've got the Buffaloes for that. The Buffaloes are to take out any light APCs at the start. Rory Cat 105 also takes out a lot of the APCs at range. So having the Ferret and NTAC try to do that be cheap is not so good. Ferret Mark II Milan. It's basically the Milan F1. Again, Buffaloes do this job, and unlike the Buffalo, this thing dies when it's hit once, whereas the Buffaloes can take quite a few rounds before they go down with their 15-man squad and being infantry. Rattel VT3A1. This thing I toyed with maybe taking because it looks like it will fire 3 swift missiles before it has to go out. Those are pretty accurate. I don't know how fast those swift missiles are. So this is something to consider at long range. But a problem with ATGMs in vehicles, I've noticed, is that if you see an ATGM vehicle and you have tanks, if you charge your tanks forward at the ATGM vehicle, it can get 1 missile off, and maybe that missile will hit the tank before the tank is in range with the Rattel, especially if the tank has 2250 range, or 2275 meter range. So it's definitely something that if you have a good front line, which I haven't really been able to do very well, it's been very fluid, but if you have a very good solid front line, you can use this to just kind of pressure down the enemy taking out a vehicle here and here at extreme range of the Rattel and slowly squeeze forward the enemy of any vehicles that are appearing. But I opted not to do that. Instead, it came down to trying to figure out the point between the Ferret and the Rattel 90S FSF. Well, the reason why I didn't go with the Rattel 90 FSV is because I just didn't like the stats. 8 AP power, heat, no thank you. It doesn't get better as you get closer. Accuracy is 5% more. Whoopee. Front armor is 2. Okay, that doesn't mean... It means a little bit more, but not enough for all the other shortcomings. The Ferret Mark II 106, however, pretty fast, decent autonomy, AP power and HE power. This is an extra support. Like, I throw this... I've mixed some of these Ferret Mark IIs, and I have done it before, mixing these Ferret Mark IIs with my Rattel 20s, and I've seen engagement where the enemy forces of APCs especially just melt with the Ferrets, just taking them out with their 15 AP power, and then afterwards they turn around with their 3 HE power and fire with their recoilless rifles, and it's not like the rate of fire is any different between them, and they're small, so things actually miss these guys pretty quickly. So I'm actually pretty happy so far with this, but you could switch it out with the Rattel if you think you can use it appropriately. I just know I'm not going to be able to use the Rattel ZT3 very well, so I got the Ferret. Helicopters. Of course, I got the Rory Cat, because Mistrals and 8 ATGMs. This is basically the king of long range. It's the Tiger Recon that the Germans have, minus the rocket pods. You get autocannon instead, which also can double up as taking out enemy helicopters as well. So I'm actually fine with that. And besides, I'm going to be using it mainly for the Igawi missile with the Mistrals on the side. I have Beta 90s, which also have the Igawi missile with the rocket pods. I figured this is also when I'm going for tanks. This is if the enemy has also helicopters in the area. So I actually got both. There is the Alouette, but the Alouette is the side with the autocannon. Didn't get this due to the fact that it has 4 strengths and it dies pretty easily. I'd rather have just gotten this guy to take out the tanks more directly for a cheaper way. And for even cheaper, I even got the Beta 87s with rocket pods, autocannons, and a couple of Kukri missiles. So, yep, this is actually pretty decent helicopters. And aircraft. First thing I got, Cheetah D. Seed. Very interesting seed. It fires both seed missiles at a target, and it has 10 HE power. And so it will stun stuff up, and the HE still will also kill stuff. It's very interesting. I think you can even fire position the seed missiles if you don't actually have a radar lock. So, very interesting aircraft. I even have Cheetah Cs, and I picked these, even though I'm not happy. Reason why I didn't pick the Carver. Carver for 10 points more. Don't get anything extra, really. You should be able to kill stuff with the Cheetah C if all your missiles hit. The 10% additional ECM for 10 points. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was worth it, so I just picked the Cheetah C in this case. Then I also got Mirages, and you're probably raising an eyebrow of why I went with this. Well, I got these guys at Veteran. I would get them at Elite if I could. But basically, I didn't do those in the video in those games that I played, but they're supposed to actually be the scout. With very good air detection, they're supposed to check if there's any helicopters going to the location that I want to kill the enemy. And it was between this and the Mirage 3CZ. And I decided to get the Mirage F1CZ instead of the Mirage 3CZ. God, that's a mouthful. Mainly because the missiles, the Mirage only has 3 missiles. They fire, they're done, and it's shot down. It also has 0 ECM, and I didn't like that. Whereas the Mirage F1CZ, its purpose is to scout enemy helicopters if the enemy helicopters is coming. It can engage those enemy helicopters and strafe them with 20% ECM, it can survive some anti-air helicopters that fire back, which is what I'm looking for, essentially. And with veteran accuracy to get those missiles up, I'm sure with 900 kilometers an hour, it can fire both missiles before it goes out, and it can also engage aircraft in close quarters as well with these 6 extra infrared missiles. That's kind of why I doubled up with that. Just Helo Hunter and a little bit of extra utility in shooting down enemy aircraft and such. And then the Buccaneer. I decided to get 2 of these guys at veteran just to try to get that accuracy up because it's got 4 anti-tank guided missiles, but it fires them 1 at a time. I've noticed. But sort of the AP power, I just need 1 of those to hit, and that thing's gone. 0 ECM, so it's probably going to die. But I'm trying to get these guys on target. You can get 8 of these guys if you really want to. Where is that? Here it is. Yeah, you can get 8 of these at rookie, but I decided to just get 2 at veteran so that I can try to take out those heavy tanks that I need to. I was trying to go with the Saber or the Impala for rocket pod dropping against the enemy. But after that one game where I was fighting the Canberra, where I noticed that 15 strengths and it was 8 500 kilogram bombs, I decided to try to bring this in. The 15 strengths I feel can help it survive a little bit with the 0 ECM, but I'm not going to bring this in over an area that is heavy in air defenses. So Canberra, still trying to get a read on it. If I don't like it, I'll probably switch to like the Saber or the Impala. The difference between the Saber and the Impala is double the rocket pods, but I'm pretty sure the Impala only fires half the rocket pods, and then you have to click again to fire another half, which is good if you like to double click in the line so it quickly fires in a row, but that just takes extra practice and such. So, but it has less time over target than the Saber does, so you have to definitely figure out what you want to do with that. But that is my deck that I have for the South Africa Army. Any suggestions? I'd be open to hearing about that, what you guys like. Any of my reasons why I didn't take certain vehicles or units, why you think I should try to give that another try again or in a different combination, let me know. And I'll keep experimenting with South Africa as well as actually get into doing regular Wargame. I can't just stick to one nation for a while. It gets boring for me really fast. I love shifting dynamics. And maybe I'll start up another deck building video. So, yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. And I hope to see you all in future Wargame videos.